Hey, it's Matt from Black Hole Woodworking. Welcome back. I'm making mini whiskey barrels today. The strongest thing I'm going to have in them is probably water, but on we go. I'm using a peeling cut here with my skew to rough this down to round. This started out by really being a skew chisel practice project, and I got a new scraper that I wanted to try as well, so we'll kind of walk through that. I used to try the skew chisel with a kind of a rounded grind at the bottom part of it, at the heel? Anyway, the short point. But I found that this flat, straight skew works a lot better for me. So this little barrel is going to be 2 inches long, pretty much exactly. And when you look up a barrel, you'll find that there's a particular ratio for the opening and the bottom compared to the belly of the barrel. So that's what I'm doing here. Forgive my Canadian measurement, but my barrel is going to be about 1.5 inches at the biggest part of the belly and 31 millimeters at the top and bottom. If I think harder, the belly is about 36 to 37 mils. Yeah, Canadians, we switch between imperial and metric all the time. To round the top and the bottom, it's kind of like rounding a bead with a skew chisel. I use the parting tool and my caliper to get the measurements precise so I can mimic this every time, and it's going to be consistent because you want to have a stack of 6 barrels and make them look the same. These particular metal straps, fake metal straps, is the design I've settled on, so I'll mark that with a pencil before I notch it with a skew. I'm making little V-cuts with my skew chisel, and I widen them slightly just so it fits the guitar string I'm going to use next. Safety is really important, and it's something you got to take into your own hands. My gloves, for example, they're super popular here on YouTube. Lots of concerned people warn me about them, and I get that. And others are completely understanding because they also live in Canada in winter and also need gloves in winter or in summer. The wood chips coming off the wood are just that painful. Or it's the steam and it burns and you really do need gloves. So I appreciate concerns on safety. I very much take that to heart for myself, and I hope you guys do too. So previously I had notched into the end of this barrel with my skew chisel. I just had my ginormous shoulder in the way, so there was no real video to show. But I'm really just measuring up the side of the barrel with my drill bit and sticking it straight in the middle. And with the 1/2-inch spindle gouge here, I'm doing a back hollowing. The way you do it is to stick the spindle gouge straight up and down like I had it, and you kind of rock the gouge back and forth, making sure you keep contact with that bevel the whole time. Once I'm inside a little further, I do open it up a bit, and then I get a little more grip, but not a whole lot. I prefer to leave catches for baseball. Here's a snazzy round nose-ish scraper that I've got. It's nice and beefy, and it works quite well. I use it by, well, pretty much sticking it to the end, and I tilt upward so that my angle that I'm cutting at is really, really small. And that gives me a really fine cut. This thing's noisy like crazy because I'm really sticking this thing into end of a speaker or a megaphone kind of. But basically pointing that thing up a bit and pushing it against the sidewall gently gives me an extremely clean cut when the angle is that small. I'm using my finger to measure how deep the hole is. Conveniently, it fits into the notch on my finger. And then the final thing is to take my usual small round nose scraper and literally bump the end of the bottom so that it's smooth. Here I'm putting water on the outside. And no, I'm not raising the grain. It's to avoid this issue. I'm about to torch the inside, and back to safety, make sure you get rid of all your loose sawdust around. You don't want to light anything on fire. But here we go. Without that water on the outside, I would char the end and it would not look so pretty. But with the water, it works out super well. You can tell it lightened up there at the end because it dried the outside from the inside. You don't need to stick the torch in there very long, but that's how I do it. And I'm only showing the sanding here a little bit because you only want to sand this at the end to remove any remaining char and to dry it. For the exterior finish, I'm using walnut oil and a top coat of beeswax. I do not finish the inside. The charring is the finish on the inside, except I give it a good rinse so that I get rid of all that loose char in there. Once again, I'm getting the beeswax from the remains of my wife's favorite candle. Works remarkably well. To get this thing off the lathe properly, I'm using a parting tool and just cutting down. Now you can't cut all the way down. You gotta kind of give yourself some space. You've gotta alternate, right side, left side, like I'm doing here, to get down far enough. And then I needed to clear myself a little bit more room because I'm switching to my skew chisel again to really make a clean bottom of the barrel. So I didn't get a great angle here. It's really tight. Usually my camera is in the way when I'm doing these videos, so it's not exactly the way I would hold the tools all the time, but it's pretty close. Basically, kind of whittle down that little piece holding this barrel on as best you can to the smallest point, but you never want to cut it off right at the bottom of the barrel. I've done that, and it ended up taking out like a whole chunk of the inside because it just does that. So, I know, safety again, this thing, if it were to catch on the barrel, it would just rip it off. And it was such a small amount holding it, it would be fine, and it's my choice to do that. To clean off the bottom of the barrel, wish I could show you a little better there, but I am using my skew chisel to just kind of clean off that little nub, and that's it. I don't even need to sand that anymore, and you will see once I put my walnut oil finish on the bottom that it cleans up real nice. Of course, you got to do a flatness test. Make sure that it actually stands before you put all that finish on the bottom. And that's how I make a little barrel. It's quite a fun little project. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, shoot me a comment, and thanks for watching.